Change some settings here. All right. I'm just going to jump right into this because it's recording and it's good, and I want to get started. If you missed the beginning, you can go back and watch it again. So meat in due season, right? The Lord will give us meat in due season, is what he says. He will always come through for us. If we're diligent and have a heart to receive it, he will be there. And he keeps his promises. The Lord God is good. All praise Abiyah for all of this. This is nothing on my own accord. So as the title says, Tobit and the Feasts. I'll give you just a little bit of background, then I'll dive into this. A couple days ago, a sister reached out into a group of people, and she had mentioned something about, does anyone know anything about the book of Tobit? Someone emailed me and said something about Tobit, the book of Tobit and the feasts. I had seen people use the book of Tobit, mention it, to talk about keeping the feast in the land, keeping the feast wherever you are. I apologize. So my daughter told my wife, and my wife started looking into this. She starts reading the book of Tobit. She comes to me yesterday with her mind blown about what she found. And she told me all of these things that I'm going to go over, and I'm going to go over even more than what she said. And it's pretty amazing. It's pretty amazing. I'm going to say this up front so no one can say anything different, so it's on here and live. I love the feasts of God. Yah has made these eternal feasts. They're beautiful feasts. I remember them. And I believe that the Bible teaches us we are to keep them in the land. I don't hate the feasts. I have nothing wrong with the feasts. I care about the full instruction of God and pleasing my Father in everything he says to do. That's where my heart's at. And if that means I've got to sit here and lament during the feasts because I'm not in the land or my inheritance, and that's what it means. That's what I'm going to do. I'm not going to do what's right in my own eyes. A funny story. Some would say we are in the season. I can call it that because I don't know the day, but I can tell you that we're in the season of Pentecost. And this just so happens to do with Pentecost. So when I tell you the Lord gives meat in due season, he sure gives meat in due season. It's amazing. So I'm gonna jump right in here and kind of go through Tobit 1, Tobit 2, and make some connections here on what Yah has shown us. All right. So Tobit 1. I am Tobit, and this is the story of my life. My father was Tobiel, my grandfather was Ananiel, and my great-grandfather was Aduel. Aduel's father was Gabiel, his grandfather was Raphael, and his great-grandfather was Raguel, who belonged to the clan of Aziel, a part of the tribe of Naphtali. During the time that Shalmaneser was emperor of Assyria, I was taken captive in my hometown of Thisbe, located in the northern Galilee, south of Kadesh in Naphtali, northwest of Hazor, and north of Fogor. All my life I have been honest and have tried to do what is right. I often gave money to help needy relatives and other Jews who had been deported with me to Nineveh, the capital of Assyria. When I was young, I lived in northern Israel. All the tribes in Israel were supposed to offer sacrifices in Jerusalem. It was the only city that God had chosen from among all Israelite cities as the place where his temple was to be built for his holy and eternal home. Right? His eternal home. Jerusalem, Israelite, is the eternal home of God the Father, Yah. Keep that in mind. But my entire tribe of Naphtali rejected the city of Jerusalem, and the kings descended from David. Like everyone else in this tribe, my own family used to go to the city of Dan in the mountains of northern Galilee to offer sacrifices to the gold bull calf, which King Jeroboam of Israel had set up there. Remember, Jeroboam split. When the kingdom split, he didn't want anyone to go down to the temple, so he put 2 golden calves, one in Dan, and there's another city where he sets it up. Changes the feast days so that the people wouldn't go down to the temple and be swayed to stay in the other kingdom. So Tobit's talking about that. He would go down because he listened to the full instruction of God. He wanted to keep the feast, so he snuck down or left and went and kept them as prescribed in the eternal home of Yah. I was the only one in my family who regularly went to Jerusalem to celebrate the religious festivals, as the law of Moses commands everyone to do. I would hurry off to Jerusalem with the first part of my harvest, the firstborn of my animals, the 10th of my cattle, and the freshly clipped wood of my sheep, the wool of my sheep. Then I would stand before the altar in the temple and give these offerings to the priests, the descendants of Aaron. I would give 1/10 of my grain, wine, olive oil, pomegranates, figs, and other fruits to the Levites who served God in Jerusalem. Every year except the 7th year, when the land was at rest, I would sell a second 1/10 of my possessions and spend the money in Jerusalem on the festival meal. But every 3rd year, I would give a 1/3 tithe to the widows and orphans and the foreigners living among my people, and we would eat the festival meal together. I did this in keeping with the law of Moses, which Deborah, the mother of my grandfather, Ananel, yes, Deborah the prophetess, was his grandmother. So he was brought up in all the right ways of Yah. My Deborah, the mother of my grandfather Ananel, had taught me to obey. I had been left an orphan when my father died. So I just want to recap this. If you didn't notice it, this just hammered away that the eternal home of Yah is Jerusalem, and the feast are to be kept nowhere except there. It's to the point where he left his whole tribe and was the only one in his whole family who went down to obey. To obey. He didn't say, I'm going to do it here, right? Why couldn't he just do it where he was? They were broken up. He wasn't part of that kingdom anymore. He had a place to go because he listened to the full instruction. When I grew up, I married Anna, a member of my own tribe. We had a son and named him Tobias. Later, I was taken captive and deported to Assyria, and that is how I came to live in Nineveh. While we lived in Nineveh, all my relatives and the other Jews used to eat the same kind of food as the other people who lived there, but I refused to do so. Sound familiar? Sounds like Daniel, right? He did the same thing. He wouldn't eat that food. He asked for a different meal, and he got it. So again, he was devoted. He was devoted. A man like Daniel here. Let's see, where was I? Yeah, I refused to do so. Since I took seriously the commands of the Most High God, he made Emperor Shalmaneser respect me. God made him respect him, just like God made the guy watching over Daniel and his men give him the chance, because he was afraid. If you remember, that guy was afraid to die by not giving Daniel the meat. He was like, if you get skinny, they're going to kill me. And the angel showed him to show these guys mercy, and that's what happens here. And so now Tobit was placed in charge of purchasing all the emperor's supplies. Right? So that sounds like a steward as I'm reading this, right? Steward was in charge of the master's home, but he's doing it justly here. Before the emperor died, I made regular trips to the land of Media to buy things for him there. Once, when I was in the city of Rags in Media, I left some bags of money there with Gabriel's brother, and asked him to keep them for me. There were more than 600 pounds of silver coins in those bags. When Shalmaneser died, his son Sennacherib succeeded him as emperor. It soon became so dangerous to travel on the roads in Media that I could no longer go there. When Shalmaneser was still emperor, I took good care of my own people whenever they were in need. If they were hungry, I shared my food with them. If they needed clothes, I gave them some of my own. Whenever I saw a dead body on one of my people, the dead body of one of my people that had been thrown outside the city wall, I gave it a decent burial. One day, Sennacherib cursed God, the king of heaven. God punished him, and Sennacherib had to retreat from Judah. On his way back to Media, he was so furious that he killed many Israelites. But I secretly removed the bodies and buried them. And when Sennacherib later searched for the bodies, he could not find them. Then someone from Nineveh told the emperor that I was the one who had been burying his victims. Yeah, that's nice. As soon as I realized that the emperor knew all about me and that my life was in danger, I became frightened, so I ran away and hid. Everything I owned was seized and put in the royal treasury. My wife Anna and my son Tobias were all I had left. About 6 weeks later, 2 of Sennacherib's sons assassinated him and then escaped to the mountains of Ararat. Another son, Esarhaddon, became emperor and put Ahikar, my brother, and Anil's son, in charge of the financial affairs of the empire. This was actually the second time Ahikar was appointed to this position. For when Sennacherib was emperor of Assyria, Ahikar had been the wine steward, treasurer, and accountant, and had been in charge of the official seal. Just like Daniel and his guys were put in charge of all this stuff. Just see the parallels here. Since Ahikar was my nephew, he put in a good word for me with the emperor, and I was allowed to return to Nineveh because he was in hiding. So, chapter 1, hammer it home where the feasts are to be kept. Okay, just keep that in mind. And there's parallels of Daniel here. In chapter 2, it changes. So now he was hiding captive. Chapter 2 starts, he's on his way home. When I returned home, I was reunited with my wife Anna and my son Tobias at the Harvest Festival, which is also called the Festival of Weeks, which is also known as Pentecost, which is the season we're in, which is why this is so amazing that this is what he revealed. And he sat down to a delicious meal. When I saw how much food there was on the table, because it's a feast, why would she have cooked so much, right? I said to Tobias, his son, go out and find one of our people who is living in poverty, here in exile, someone who takes God's commands seriously. Bring him back with you so that he can share the festival meal with us. I won't start eating until you come back. So Tobias went out to look for such a person, but he quickly returned shouting, Father, Father. Yes, what is it? I asked. One of our people has just been murdered. Someone strangled him and threw his body into the marketplace. I jumped up and left the table without touching my food. I removed the body from the street and carried it into a little shed where I left it until sunset when I could bury it. Then I returned home and washed so to purify myself. In deep sorrow, I ate my dinner. Deep sorrow. I was reminded of what the prophet Amos had said to the people of Bethel. Your festivals will be turned into funerals, and your glad songs will become cries of grief. I began to weep. So, people have tried to use these verses of, look, Tobit was keeping the feast, and he was in Nineveh. He's not in the land. All right, well, yep, there's a feast meal there. Is it something he was supposed to do? If you read we just read chapter 1, your answer would be no. It's not something he's supposed to do. Otherwise, he would have kept it in the place he was staying at with the rest of his tribe, Naphtali. Now he's in Nineveh, and he's attempting to celebrate this feast with a meal, with a festival meal, right? And just like Amos, this is a quote from Amos 8. I'm going to bring it up here, and it's interesting because it's like, didn't you listen? He remembers it. It's like it came to him like, oh, right. The festivals are going to be turned into mourning and lamentation and funerals instead. If we're supposed to keep them wherever we're at, why would they be turned into lamentation instead of a good time? Right? So I'm gonna read. Why did it go to Isaiah? I'm gonna read some of Amos 8, because if you paid attention to what I was reading in chapter 1 and what Tobit was doing with these bodies, it's pretty cool. So this is Amos chapter 8. Thus hath the Lord God showed unto me, and behold, a basket of summer fruit. And he said, Amos, what seest thou? And I said, a basket of summer fruit. Then he said the Lord unto me, the end is come upon my people of Israel. I will not again pass by them anymore. And the songs of the temple shall be howlings in that day, said the Lord. There shall be many dead bodies in every place, and they shall cast them forth with silence. What? Hear this, O you that swallow up the needy, even to make the poor of the land to fail, saying, when will the new moon be gone, that we may sell corn, and the Sabbath, that we may set forth wheat, making the ephah small and the shekel great, and falsifying the balances by deceit. So he's mocking these people that were just, is looking at their watch. Sabbath's over, go to the store. He's mocking them. and just so they could sell and be deceitful, rip people off. That we may buy the poor for silver and the needy for a pair of shoes, and sell the refuse of the wheat. The Lord has sworn by the exceeding excellency of Jacob, surely I will never forget any of their works. Shall not the land tremble for this, and everyone mourn that dwelleth there in it? And it shall rise up wholly as a flood, and it shall be cast out and drowned as by the flood of Egypt, plagues of Egypt. And it shall come to pass in that day, said the Lord God, that I will cause the sun to go down at noon, and I will darken the earth, and I will darken the earth in the clear day. Right, when it's darkened, you can't see. That's interesting. I just caught that. So you're right. Well, as we read Tobit, keep that in mind. He darkens it. And I will turn your feast into, and here it is. And I will turn your feast into mourning, and all your songs into lamentation. And I will bring up sackcloth upon all your loins, and baldness upon every head. And I will make it as the mourning of an only son, and the end thereof as a bitter day. So, not good. He's not saying, and you'll enjoy your feast wherever you go. He's saying, I'm kicking you out of here. You're going to get tossed out, and your feasts that you, apparently they weren't keeping them right anyway, are going to become lamentation and mourning. Is that accurate? Yeah, we have a witness to that. Daniel 10. In the 3rd year of Cyrus, king of Persia, a thing was revealed unto Daniel, whose name was called Belshazzar, and the thing was true, but the time appointed was long, and he understood the thing, and had understanding of the vision. In those days, Daniel was mourning 3 full weeks. He ate no pleasant bread, neither came nor flesh nor wine to his mouth, neither did he anoint himself at all, till 3 whole weeks were fulfilled. And in the 4th and 20th day of the first month, as I was by the side of the great river, which is Hiddekel, he's going to go on and talk about the stuff he saw. All right, when was this? It was in the 1st month, on the 24th day. Well, he mourned 3 weeks. He mourned and fasted all through Passover. Why? Why didn't he just celebrate it? Right? Tobit was. Nothing happened to Tobit. He was celebrating a feast. Or did something happen? Here's the difference between Tobit and Daniel. Right? Tobit obeyed it. When he was up in the northern kingdom, he would come down to Jerusalem. But now here he is in Nineveh doing it, while Daniel mourned.